There was a lady that went on a city bus, and the bus driver looked at the lady. She was actually holding her little baby. And the bus driver said, "My, I've never seen such an ugly child." And the woman was aghast. She was appalled. She ran to the back of the bus, sobbing uncontrollably. So there was a man who was also at the back of the bus, and he says, "What happened?" He saw that she was just beside herself in grief and devastated. He says, "What happened?" She said, "The bus driver, he said something terrible." So the man said, "Listen, give me your monkey and you'll go ahead and you'll tell off the bus driver in the meantime." Kids sometimes are monkeys. Kids are very, very difficult. Tsar Gidol Banim. Raising children is not easy, and it probably was never meant to be easy. But there's no greater reward for raising children and seeing them turn out to be angels. Precious, precious jewels. The question is, how do you discipline, how do you guide, how do you rebuke and criticize a child when necessary? The fact is that just like a building is only as strong as its structure and foundation, your relationship with your child is only as strong as the guidance and discipline that you provide to that child. Very, very, very important. Every child needs discipline and every child needs guidance. If you raise your child without necessary limitations and boundaries, that is akin to planting a seed and never watering it. It's disastrous and it is lethal. It's horrible. You must tend to your child and you must provide the necessary limitations, boundaries, structure, and learn how to guide and criticize your child. But there are two very important prerequisites before you could embark on criticizing or disciplining your child. What are those two prerequisites? Those two prerequisites are having a healthy, nurturing relationship with your child, A, and B, earning the respect of your child. What does that mean? What does it mean to nurture a relationship with your child? That means that the only way you could criticize your child is if the child feels loved, validated, dignified, respected by you. As a matter of fact, the Baal Shem Tov said that when the Torah charges and mandates us, "Hocheach techiach es amisecha," which literally means rebuke, you shall rebuke your friend, Baal Shem Tov observes a very pithy and salient observation. He says it doesn't say "Hocheach tochiach" as someone else, an outsider, a foreigner, an enemy. It says amisech. Amisech, he says, means there's a camaraderie, there's a kinship, there's a relationship, there's a friendship, there's a dyad. There is a true kesher. He says, because if you're going to rebuke, if you're going to criticize someone who feels threatened, then that person views it as something menacing and malicious, harmful and hurtful, and that person will not respect anything. As a matter of fact, it's counterproductive. As a matter of fact, it once happened that there was a Gadol Hador. We don't know the identity of this Gadol Hador because the Baal Shem Tov never named who this Gadol Hador was, who was severely critical about people in the Baal Shem Tov's generation. He castigated and lambasted. He wanted to malign them. And the Baal Shem Tov was very strident and strict. And the Baal Shem Tov said, "How could you? How dare you?" He said to the Gadol Hador, "berate and criticize these people. They are not Amisecha, they're not your people. Of course, they're part of the same nation, Amcha Yisrael. But what he's saying was, he said, you're a recluse, you're a holy of holies. You're ensconced in a bubble of Kedusha. You're in the Beis Medrash." He says, but you don't understand the pain and struggles. You don't understand the vicissitudes. You don't understand the turbulence that these people are going through. In order to rebuke, in order to discipline, it has to be Amisechel. You got to know who you're talking to. And you have to have a bond. You have to have a relationship. As a matter of fact, Rav Simcha Zisel Kelm interprets the Gemara in Bava Metzia Daf Lamed Aleph that says, "Hocheach tochiach," rebuke is shall rebuke. The Gemara darshans, the Gemara extrapolates that it means that even 100 times it's your obligation to really, to toe in that person that's sinning. Even if it means 100 times. Says Rav Simcha Zisel Kelm, it doesn't mean that you have to sound off and you have to be derogatory. Rather, what it means is that you have to do it in increments, even if it means many times packaging it in bite-sized proportions, strategizing, really thinking clearly on how to get across. But it has to be predicated. The basis, the makor of it has to be a relationship, a loving relationship. And therefore, it's incumbent on us to nurture a relationship with our children, that we are their closest confidants, that we are their biggest admirers. They have to know that. They have to feel really loved, and they have to feel exceedingly appreciated by us. And I want to share with you something astounding that I personally found astounding. And this is the words of Rav Aaron Leib of Primishlan. Rav Aaron Leib of Primishlan said that when Nassan Hanavi, Nassan the prophet, came to admonish and chastise David HaMelech, King David, for his indiscretion with Bathsheba. So the Pasuk says in Kapitel Nun Aleph in Psalm 51 in Tehillim, it says that when Nassan Hanavi approaches David, when Nassan the prophet approaches David, it says, Kasher ba el Bathsheba. It says that he went like David went to Bathsheba. Now, really what it means is that he went to David on the account of the fact that David did this indiscretion with Bathsheba. But it says Rav Aaron Leib from Mishlan, you know what it means? It means that how did he approach King David, David HaMelech, to discipline him, and to criticize him, to rebuke him, to correct him? He did it in a sweet way. The same way David went to Bathsheba in an endearing way, in a loving way, so too did Nassan go to David. And this is David HaMelech, a tzaddik, a Talmud Chacham, the greatest. And yet, there had to be a sensitivity. You have to be sensitive. You don't know the struggles of the other person. You don't know the struggles of your child. You don't know what happened to them at school that day. Maybe they were bullied. Maybe the child suffered from something, shame. Maybe the child had a really difficult day. Do you know? No. Therefore, you go to the child endearing, loving. And if you're not going to do that, better not to do it. And then there's another prerequisite. The second prerequisite is earning the trust of the child. And basically what that means is, in simple terms, don't be a hypocrite. Because if you're a hypocrite, there's absolutely pointless to try to discipline, to try to rebuke or correct that child. As a matter of fact, the Gemara says, it's a Gemara in Bava Metzia. The Gemara says in Bava Metzia, Daf Kuf Zayin, page 107. The Gemara says, Hochiach tochiach. What does it mean, Hochiach tochiach? The Mefarshim explain that it means that in order to give techacha, in order to give rebuke, in order to discipline, Hochiach, first you should go ahead and you should make sure that you are clean, that you are clear of that same type of condition or sin. Kishayt atzmecha, that before you adorn, before you embellish, before you correct, before you try to beautify others, beautify yourself. Because if you are suffering from that same condition, if you are suffering from that same indiscretion, if you are suffering from that same sin, and you go to your child and you try to discipline your child will look at you, and your child will never be receptive or accept. So for example, you tell your child, you're spending too much time playing games or on your phone, or online if the child has access to online. And the child looks at you and the child says, but mommy, or but tati, you're always on your phone. And if the child doesn't verbalize or articulate it, the child's thinking about that mentally, and the child's thinking, what a hypocrite. Your child has an anger issue, and your child really gets irate, and blows a fuse. And you discipline the child, and the child's thinking, who's the parent to criticize me? He or she always gets angry. And of course, the old story, you want your child to behave in shul and to be quiet in shul. When the child sees you talking the entire, you can't be a hypocrite. First you have to adorn, first you have to correct yourself. And then tochiach. And finally, the Gemara in Yevamos. The Talmud says in Tractate Yevamos, Daf Samachay, page 65, that sometimes it's better to be quiet and not to rebuke. One has to know the time and the place. And really, in order to know when to rebuke and when to discipline, it's very hard for us to be objective. And sometimes we just don't have the knowledge. And that's why it's important to have a relationship with a Rav, with a Moreh Ra, or with a therapist, or maybe in conjunction with a therapist, to understand how to guide and how to discipline a child.